All right, man, peace. So, brothers, a few months ago, I did a video on Mr. Brandon Browner, the former star cornerback of the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. And the name of the video was Brandon Browner, Concubine Problems. And the reason why I entitled the video that is because, like I always tell brothers, every time you deal with one of these women, you're dealing with a headache. You have to know how to manage that headache. And if the headache consistently becomes a migraine, you have to find a way to alleviate that migraine by cutting out whatever it is that is causing these problems within your life. That's why it's best for certain brothers that they be by themselves until they're ready to be in a relationship with one of these women, because when you're dealing with these women, you have to be prepared for the nonsense because it will come. And if you don't truly understand all of the dynamics of dealing with these modern day liberal women, and if you yourself have not been prepped on what it means to be a man, meaning understanding how to compartmentalize different energies, whether it be jealousy or insecurity or security. Sometimes people are too secure. And when you're too secure, things start happening under your nose that you should be noticing, but you don't notice. And then you get caught by surprise and you respond emotionally and you end up getting caught up in some craziness. And that is, I believe, what happened to Mr. Brandon Browner. Maybe he became too secure because of his status as a former professional athlete. And he thought this chick is going to be here forever. Once again, brothers, there is nothing permanent in the flesh. The woman can wake up tomorrow and decide she doesn't, quote unquote, like you anymore, or she's bored or what have you. You have to always have your eyes on higher things, that being the Most High. It could never be on a woman in regards to believing that she's always going to be there. If she's there for you tomorrow, great. But with these women, they're so tempestuous. There are so many different energies flowing into and out of them that you can never, ever put stock in the permanence of an earthly relationship, not just with your woman, but with a friend, whether it be male or female, a colleague, a family member. You never know what's going to happen on the daily. All you can do is put the Most High first, treat people as respectfully as possible, be as respectable as possible, and hope for the best. And always understand that you have to protect yourself at all times. That's how that goes. But you cannot give gifts to a woman and then decide after the fact, oh, I want that gift back. That's just par for the course. That's just how it goes. When you drive a car for a certain period of time and that car starts to break down on you, you can't go back to the dealer after you've had the car for 6 years and say, I want my money back. No, whatever you put into the car, that's part of your time period with that car. Modern day relationships in this society are not based in the concept of permanence. They're based in the concept of dalima, that being do what thou wilt. People get bored, they move on. They're no longer entertained, they move on. We have to spend more time making sure that we cultivate an aspect of permanence within ourselves so that we understand when we see it in somebody else, as opposed to when we see that normal, whimsical, capricious nature that has become so consistent overtly in the woman. That nature of being capricious or whimsical is always within the inner recesses of the woman. But in this society, they encourage the woman to be overt with it. Like, oh, well, I'm just going to do this or I'm just going to do that. So once you know the nature of the woman, you no longer should get caught off guard. I believe that Mr. Brandon Browner got caught off guard. Maybe he, quote unquote, fell in love with the woman and he decided that what he and her had was always going to last. I cannot say this enough, brothers. Nothing lasts permanently in the flesh. Nothing. So anyway, they're going to talk about it and I'm going to chime in.
Welcome back to TMZ Sports. I've been here with Michael J. Babcock.
What's up, man?
Bad news for Brandon Browner. Brandon Browner was a former NFL star. He was a member of the original Legion of Boom defense on the Seahawks.
Big guy, 6'4", big, hard hitter. I love watching him play.
2 Super Bowls, one with...
And a lot of these brothers, especially in the NFL, they become so accustomed to exerting their will on another human being that they take that practice into their regular lives. They don't know how to turn that switch off and make sure that they're living in a functional, constructive way. And it's only going to lead to more and more disastrous results. Because the NFL and the mainstream super liberal media and the super liberal sports media have basically let all these women know that if you see something, say something, like they say here in New York in regards to any suspicion of terrorism on the subways. If you see something, say something. If you're a female today and you're with a professional athlete, if they show any signs of being quote unquote aggressive, report them. Or you can sucker them into some type of domestic dispute and then call the cops on them, call the media, maybe even extort them, threaten them with civil suits. That's why if you're a professional athlete today, you should consider being single until you're retired, a la Derek Jeter.
With the Seahawks, some of the Patriots, and now he's going to be spending the next 8 years behind bars. He was convicted of attempted murder today in a courtroom in Southern California, stemming from an incident back in July where his ex-girlfriend says that Browner broke into her apartment and basically attacked her, smothered her, dragged her, chased her, took a bunch of stuff, and all in front of her 2 young children.
Now, brothers, I'm already on record as stating that for the most part, when men allow themselves to fall in love with these modern-day women, you read more and more of these stories about the man stabbing the woman up, killing her, shooting her, killing the kids, so on and so forth. Why does that happen? Because once again, what falling in love is an attempt to put a human being, a flesh and blood human being that happens to be a female, on a pedestal as a god. You're giving your spirit, your mind, your soul over to that person. And you're putting all of that into her hands and saying, it's yours forevermore. And that's why I state without a shadow of a doubt that the whole point of teaching brothers to not fall in love is not only for your benefit, but also for the woman's benefit. Because so many of these females, because they're two-dimensional thinkers and they're imbued with the Disney programming from their childhood. What is the Disney programming? Disney programming is when these little girls watch these animated films and they see the dynamic of the Prince Charming who sweeps Cinderella or Snow White or Sleeping Beauty off of her feet and gives her whatever she wants. And at the end of the film, they go off and live happily ever after in a castle. That teaches these young girls that no matter what they do or where they come from, they deserve to have the perfect man come and claim them. And when they become quote unquote adults physically, because a woman truly does not mature or start to mature until she's 45, they try to live out these Disney fantasies with these males. And most of these males are under Disney programming themselves. They're called simps. A simp basically has the spirit of a woman trapped inside of a man's body. That's why there's so much confusion. Brothers, so many of the problems that you have in relationships can be avoided if, number one, you know how to say no. Number two, you know how to cut things off when they need to be cut off. When you see a female trying to pull you into her world, you never, ever, ever allow a woman to pull you into her world. That's going to be disaster for you and her, but at the very least for you.
Claimed he was super violent and almost killed her. He was arrested and he was charged with attempted murder and a bunch of other crimes. Well, today he was in court where he pled no contest to attempted murder and a couple other charges.
Yes, attempted murder, which is basically code word for this nigga allowed himself to fall in love with this broad.
And the sentence that he got was 8 years in prison. Now, that's a deal for Brandon Browner because he was facing life in prison. So 8 years he was...
Hey, brothers, there's no pussy on the planet worth 8 years in prison. Okay? There's no pussy on the planet worth 8 years in prison. I don't give a shit what you gave the broad. Necklaces, bracelets, chains, shoes. Let her keep all that shit. If you're able to get out of a dysfunctional, destructive relationship with your sanity, with your house or with your apartment, your car, your job or your career still intact, and you don't have to pay alimony and child support, you should count yourself very fortunate. All right? This dude decided he was going to break into the female's house and try to take back whatever he felt like he bought her because he was upset and bitter that she decided to leave him behind. And who knows, it might have been his fault. Maybe he suffered from CTE or something like that and he was physically abusive. Who knows? Or maybe she's just a normal modern day liberal female looking to go through the Kali Ma process of destroy and rebuild, break up, make up. Who the hell knows? Point being is this: do not allow yourself to succumb to this dynamic. It's not healthy, it's not fruitful, it's not constructive.
He was remanded in custody in court today, so he's going to start doing time right now. He got 300 days of credit because he's been in jail since July when the incident happened, and now he's going to get 300 days credit for that. But what a downfall for a guy who was such a talented player, who was well liked in the league, seemed to have a good head on his shoulders, and now this.
And I've interviewed Brandon Browner before, and to me, he seemed like a really sweet, nice guy. He's only 30.
Maybe he was. Maybe he's a decent dude. But these guys allow themselves to fall in love with these modern-day liberal women, man, and they just become different people. Or maybe he was just putting on a facade for you. Who the hell knows?
34 years old. When you think about, like you said,
Cat is 34 years old and looks 45. So it's very obvious that he's accustomed to allowing the modern-day liberal female to lead him about, lead him astray, and get him caught up in nonsense.
Said he was facing life. His life would have been over. At least now the guy's going to get out in his early 40s and he can try to rehabilitate, try to fix it.
Really? That's supposed to be some type of compensation? Well, he's only going to have to spend 8 years in prison over a silly bitch. But then again, maybe he's the silly bitch. Who the hell knows? Brothers, once again, you always love with your head. You don't love with your emotions. You love with your head. All right? No matter what it is in the flesh, you always love with your head.
Fix his life, but it's an awful story. It's awful what he did, and I don't know what went wrong.
It's interesting, while he was in jail awaiting the hearing today, there was another NFL player who was locked up with him in Los Angeles. That man is Sean Smith of the Oakland Raiders. He was a stud defensive back. Remember, he was convicted of beating up his sister's boyfriend, stomping him out in Pasadena, and he'd been spending some time in jail. And today, he's out of jail now, but today he tweeted, he put this out, he said, "Just seen the news about my dog B. Browner, shaking my head. It's crazy how I was just in there with him. He for sure helped me get through the last few months in that hellhole. Jail is for animals. I don't wish it on anyone. I can only imagine." Shaking my head. If y'all are his real friends, reach out.
Hey, brothers, you hear that? This brother Sean Smith stated that jail is for animals. Of course it's for animals, aka debt slaves, because that's how they view all human beings in this global society. We're all viewed as debt slaves. And when they send you to jail or to prison, you're there to work off your debt. That's it. So don't get caught up in the trap, man. You make sure that you vet yourself every day. We have to all vet ourselves every day. And we have to vet the people that we allow into our lives. And you'll find that everything goes much smoother when you have that perspective, that approach. That we have to vet ourselves and everybody around us. Because so many of the issues that we have every day are caused by our own poor decision-making process. It's not even about the bad decisions, it's about the bad decision-making process. Do we understand that we cannot let everything in? Even a computer has firewalls set up to not let everything in, because what? There can be the potentiality for a virus to enter into the computer. Once the virus enters in, the computer no longer functions at its optimal capabilities. It's the same thing with human beings. We just cannot let everybody in. You have to vet them, and we have to vet ourselves.
So that's from Sean Smith, the former Oakland Raiders star, who says that he feels bad for Brandon Browner because he knows what life is like in jail, and it's
right. He probably doesn't belong there.
I think the point that Sean is trying to make, though, is that
well, keep in mind, jail and prison is not just for criminals; it's also for idiots.
Jail is supposed to be a rehabilitation thing, right? Right? Then you're not just locked.
Well, no, not really. Jail is basically a detainment center for debt slaves to work off their debt. If you can't pay bond, you have to work off your debt there. So they put a charge on you. If you cannot pay that charge, if you cannot offset that charge, they send you to jail or prison until you've offset the debt. That's the bottom line to that.
Locked up and throw away the key and they forget about you.
Not necessarily just punishment.
You're supposed to come out of jail rehabilitated, a better person who's learned from their mistake and has learned not to do this again.
Right.
But sometimes when you go to jail, you just get attacked and beat down and treated like a dog. And it sounds like that was Sean's experience behind bars. And I don't think anybody necessarily wants that. You want justice.
Right.
You don't want vigilante justice.
It is what it is. Hopefully you brothers learn from this story here with Mr. Brandon Browner. Once again, there is no pussy on the planet worth spending even 1 day in prison or jail for. No coochie on the planet worth all that. So peace.